You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! Hosing! Score! To Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
52.1 seconds to go. Do you love it, Niagara?
Welcome into another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. Proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family and their 4 great Niagara region locations. This is another IceDogs monthly wrap-up show. I'm your host of the program, Bryant Caputo. You can follow me on X at bcaputo_AGM. And if you're following along in the video version, to my right is my co-host Cam Halbert. You can follow him on X at No Sleeves Gaming. Thanks to those today tuning in on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell for all updates on video versions of our podcast that do get released here on the network. And to those listening today or on demand on whatever audio platform you choose to listen to us, thank you very much for doing that as well. So we're going to go over today the IceDogs results for January. The trade deadline was mixed in there as well, so we're going to get Cam's kind of reaction to that since he missed the trade deadline recap episode there. We're going to speak with Gavin Bryant, the new captain of the Niagara IceDogs, for our first Leadership Lounge segment as well. We've got a special interview today. No head coach Ben Boudreau this month or GM Wes Consorti. We've decided to go a different route for this month and bring on the Director of Scouting, Adam Henrich, who gave us some great insight on the 07 draft class that's obviously been so successful for Niagara this year, and what they're looking for going into the 08 draft class this upcoming April. So we'll hear from Adam as well. So with that said, Cam, we'll open up today here just talking general thoughts on the team. The trade deadline was in this month as well, so they made some moves there, and we've obviously talked about that in our game recaps. Quick plug, we do audio game recaps after every single home game there at the Meridian Center, and they're available the next morning. So, Cam, what are your thoughts on just how the month of January has played out for the IceDogs right now?
Well, it was definitely up and down because there was a span there after a couple of wins that they were only 5 points back of a playoff spot. And even as it stands right now, they're only 7 back. That's one good weekend, essentially, with Peterborough and Barrie continuing to have, a heck of a time, especially Peterborough. Because they've really fallen off the back half of the season. But it was obviously tough. Trade deadline is always going to be difficult, especially in the OHL. You got to remember, these guys are kids, teenagers. You're losing a good friend that you see, all the time. And they're a lot younger than, what you would see in the NHL and other leagues. So it's always tough. And not only that, they, had to move on with some of the more staple parts of their lineup. Sobolev, Bronson Ride, former captain Zach Lavoie. Like, that's obviously tough to do, especially on a team that's been struggling this season, because that means that the rest of the season is not going to be easier. However, in their stead, we did get a couple of really, really nice pieces and players back. Chanowski and Mason Ray have been really fun to watch. And I think they're going to be a good part of the season team. Charlie Robertson, finally some help for Owen Flores after moving on from Vandenberg to Kitchener earlier in the year. So, but yeah, obviously still disappointing. I think that this last weekend kind of put a bow on things in a rough spot just because they've been undermanned with some injuries. And, that three straight losses again with that 10 spot in Kingston's awfully difficult.
Yeah, and they're sitting 7 points back, and it is possible because they do play Barrie and Peterborough both twice before the end of the season, but they've got to start to make up some ground here against some other teams. And again, as you mentioned this weekend, they were undermanned again, and then Alex Asadorian got suspended after the Kingston game, so they were undermanned going up to Ottawa. That just got elevated in that sense, and it's just tough to overcome when you're running with two less forwards and one less defenseman. Flores missed the weekend as well, so they called up Tyson Gusta as the backup, but Charlie Robertson remained in all three of the games this week and played the back-to-back 3-3, which is not easy to do. So it was good to see him finally get some playing time. But even though that wasn't ideal, so as we move forward, like we look at the last lineup here, Cam, from the game against Ottawa, and I know Mike Levin's going to come back, so that's going to be a big plus. Shout out to him for winning gold for Team Israel at the World U20s. Had 17 points in 4 games, including 9 goals, and way to the gold. So he's going to come back with a lot of confidence, obviously, and he's been a pretty good goal scorer for the IceDogs this year. But if we look at it, the last game they had Kevin He, Gavin Bryant, and Ryan Robrick up front with Evan Klein, Ethan Zada, Matthew Paris on the second line. Third line of Andrew Vermeulen, Mason Ray, and Ivan Galyanov, and then William Stewart was the extra forward there, with them basically only having 3 forward lines with Alex Asadorian out. So, when Levin does come back, and he will be back this week, still no word on how long Alex Asadorian's suspension is going to be, but let's just say he's going to be out of the lineup this upcoming week. What are you looking at from the forward group?
I mean, you're asking a lot of players to play not just one position, but all over the place, up and down the lineup, and that's really been the case for quite some time. Obviously, head coach Ben Boudreau has talked a lot about being undermanned, and unfortunately, that's just the scenario that they're in. They're not going to give up. They've won a game with 16 players in the lineup already against one of the best in the league. So it's never going to be an excuse, but it is something that I don't know how they address in the future year. I've talked about this with me and you before games and things like that, just looking up lineup cards, is that no other team seems to battle this nearly as much, right? And, there was a point in November where we had 9 players missing, that is exceptional. Like, that is something that we had an illness, I think, run through. Like, it was a very, very tough time. But that is exceptional. But we're only missing a couple guys, and you're running no fourth line in a 3-3. Like, there's setting your team up to, setting, I don't want to say setting them up for failure, but you're already making a last place team that had to move away pieces and things like that, have to make it even harder on themselves. And that is just exhausting for the players. It's got to be. And tough as a fan to watch, too, because we don't understand why that's the case. Because, like I said, other teams battle injuries as well, and just not seeing an undermanned lineup. So I hope that the rest of the season, or even next season, that it's a point that, while it's not always great to have players have to sit in the press box and watch a game, early on in the season, man, Galyanov and O'Flaherty, before he was moved, like, they couldn't get and William Stewart couldn't get in the lineup. And that was a plus, because at least that breeds competition in practice, things like that. Someone will go down with an injury, just how it goes, which is a very tough league, and you're able to fill it then. I just hope we see more of that next year. I don't want to see lineups where you can't ice a fourth line, or you have, Federico playing on offense, things like that, when players got to play out of position. That's something that I hope is rectified going forward. And, I think that how the foundation is being built right now through the draft, again, we're going to talk about the 07 draft class, I think, for a long time, when all is said and done. Another draft class like that's going to go a long way, because where those guys are going to play in their lineup. And, we just need to see some more influx of that talent. But 7 points out of the playoff spot, Brandon, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And, you get these guys, even at one game against the Brantford Bulldogs, every time they play Brantford, it is not a blowout, like, the Eastern Conference is so wide open, and getting these guys just one playoff series of experience would be so massive for their development. Because we talk about when Robrick and Zada went to the U17s, right? And the confidence that you get when you come back from that, when you rep your country, you're among the best of your peers, right? Of that age group. You come back, you're just more confident. You get in the playoffs, regular season, you at least know what it's like a little bit, right? You've been in the dance. And I think it'd just be so huge for a lot of these players, especially guys like Kevin. They can go into their gear, right? They get that feeling. And it'd be great. It'd be great too for the fans. I just want to mention one thing as well. We've talked about the last few seasons. The IceDogs have been in last place, and it's been brutal in that sense. But they're 3 points away from matching their total last year. So we've talked about how this team is not as bad as last year's. And while they are still in last place, still fighting for a playoff spot, whether the percentage of them getting in is low or not. 3 points away with 23 games to go. That just goes to show you that the marketed improvement that this team has gone through over one season.
Yeah, and they would have had to make up 30 points from the previous season to be in a playoff spot. So they're making up the ground. Again, they're not there yet, but there are, like you said, positive improvements. And you mentioned the organizational depth and just having the players to be able to get in the lineup, having enough players to get in the lineup, and then making an impact when they do get in the lineup. So I think that's important too, and making sure that the coaching staff and the players aren't just feeling that we got to really step up tonight, or we're going on a long road trip and we're undermanned. And these kids, I mean, I know they're kids and they have a high motor, but there's only so much that they can do on a nightly basis there. And they're really the ones that are in the lineup. I got to give a kudos to them, because they're going out there every single night knowing that they're undermanned, and they're still putting in a good effort, and really in most of these games. This take away the Kingston 10-0 game and the Barrie 7-0 game. They've been in all of these games,
especially at home too. Like, how many times have we felt like a game it's a 1-goal game, or they have the lead after 40, right? Like it's been very impressive to watch them grow this season, and to do it with such a young core is massive, because you talked about it. It's not the 16-year-olds that are missing games, and again, injuries without, you can't really do much with injury or suspension, things like that. But, with all the excuse in the world to, maybe miss a few games, 16-year-olds aren't, like, they're staying in there, and it's, they're playing hard, and they're playing high in the lineup, probably higher than in a perfect world where you'd want them to. But it's making them develop quickly, and maybe that was the perfect thing for the 4 16-year-olds this year.
25 goals for, 45 against, and a 3-6-1 record to wrap up January. And the goals against is going to look bad there, because a 10-0 and a 7-0 game, that's 17 goals right there, and they'd probably be closer to around their goals for and goals against mark being around even. But those two games were just games that are going to happen with a young team, and you just kind of have to throw those away, take some things from them, learn from them. But I know head coach Ben Boudreau, that is not acceptable in his mind, and in the post games that we've talked to him, that's stuff that they have to go through, but they have to be better in all aspects, because you can't lose games 10-0, despite it being the nature of junior hockey. He has a lot more pride than that, and I know the players have a lot more pride in that, but it's kind of the growing pains that they're all going through together at this point.
No, absolutely. And I think since the coaching change, such a drastic personality change from Boudreau from Kuwabara to Boudreau, and it sounds like it's working. He's holding them accountable. It doesn't matter who it is. We've seen Kevin take some heat. We've seen Flores take some heat, sometimes even to our surprise. He doesn't care if they're undermanned or who's missing from their lineup, or they got to ice 3 16-year-old centermen. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's important. I think that's a lesson that is going to go a long way. And he's still giving everyone a chance to succeed. I mean, obviously we've talked about if the playoffs aren't in the picture, which they still are technically, you got to pay attention to the future of what's going on. And Rubric has been everything that we've needed him to be as a 16-year-old. He's got 30 points in 40 games. He's tied for first among all OHL rookies, and that's against two 17-year-old rookies. 16 to 17 is a massive jump. So for him to be at 16 tied going into this week is pretty crazy. And then on top of that, he's just fourth in scoring, behind O'Reilly from London, O'Brien from Brantford, and Riley Patterson from Barrie, who I believe are all 17, if memory serves. He's he's comfortably in fourth place now, ahead of Davis Cole from Windsor. So, we'll hear from the head scout from the IceDogs in just a little bit, but it's extremely important. And I think that getting Zada to be that kind of penalty kill, second line center, which is very good defensively in his own zone kind of player, is going to be big. And then you've got Frolov, who is kind of doing it all right now. Galyanov as well has got an edge. Just fun to watch them grow. And that's really what it's about for the rest of this season. And then on top of that, getting Kevin ready for the NHL draft. I think that, I'll be honest with you, with how rough the last two seasons have been, and Kevin's rookie season was one of the worst in IceDogs history, probably.
Not his season specifically, but the team.
Not his season. No, sorry. Like, he had a great season. I'm saying that the IceDogs team as a whole, I just mentioned that, in 68 games, they had 33 points, and they're about to pass that, and we've got 23 games to go still. I think that it'll be massive. He hears his name called in the NHL draft. And because that shows other players, we mentioned the Sam Dickinson situation, things like that. And the unwillingness to maybe want to come and play for the IceDogs, that regardless of the situation, how bad it was, Kevin was able to get drafted and continue his career and advance it quite a bit. And that's going to go a long way, especially with the new coaching staff and everyone involved there. And then you've got Robrick the next year, who, for all intents and purposes, looks like he will get a shot at the NHL draft as well. So awfully big for them. And I think once that happens, you're going to see more and more players kind of be like, all right, like, I'm not requesting a trade. I'm not, Niagara's on a bad place to go. I mean, we've got a great fan base, and really excited to see this rest of the season for that aspect.
Yeah, it's almost like breaking through the stigma that has been looming over the IceDogs the last 4 years of getting players drafted. I talked to Steve Clark about this, the TV play-by-play voice. And again, I think people sour at the IceDogs for scouts and things like that because of what's gone on here. And even Kevin He being snubbed for the top prospects game, you can make a debate whether he should have been there or not. I'm not really here to talk about that. But I think once Kevin breaks through that glass ceiling, it's just going to, like you mentioned, Robrick the following year, and maybe a couple of the other 16-year-olds now, maybe they take another step and are drafted as well. But I think it's just breaking through, and I think Kevin has that opportunity. He had the 16-year-old goal record, which by our next recording, Robrick might be able to beat because he's only 6 away from it. But Kevin He, when he was on the slow start, he started to pick it up now. He started to add that bite and that physical aspect to his game that I think scouts are really looking for this year. So I'm like you, that I think once his name's called, that's going to be big for the confidence of not only him, but the organization as well.
Yeah, which also puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the season because he still needs to perform to get drafted. I don't know if it's a slam dunk yet. Again, he had a pretty tough start, but I mean, I'm not a scout or anything like that, but you can clearly tell that he's got a high motor that doesn't stop, and his skating and hockey IQ is, there's nights where he's got to do some things by himself, and he for the most part does. His back check is nuts. Like it's and then that's not just compared to the other IceDog players. That's compared to his opponents as well, regardless of who they're going up against and how many NHL prospects. But we haven't had someone like him since Akil Thomas, like that kind of embodies everything that they want the franchise to be. And I think that was kind of the end of an era when COVID, we talked about that as well, like COVID really impacting things. But when they moved on from Akil Thomas, that was the last time everything felt stable.
And Phil Tomasino.
And Phil Tomasino and Ivan Lodnia and all of those guys. Like it was very, the IceDogs felt like the rest of the league. And it was just, they were going through a cycle, right? And then obviously the off-ice things that have happened over the last couple of years. It's been a lot rockier. The Sam Dickinson not coming in and everything like that. That delays things, having him here would have changed the outlook of the franchise for sure. But you can't blame them with what was going on. And now you've got a chance that, some of these players, they're going to right the ship. And that I think that's, I think back to when Ben Boudreau was promoted to head coach, that basically in his first sentence was like, I'm not going anywhere for a while. We're going to do this right. And to have someone come in that's mindset isn't, my goodness, we got to find a way to win games now to make the playoffs or I'm gone, that's a very, and not saying that that's what head coach Kubar felt like, but it was how like management last year and the head coaching staff looked like when it came to like lineup decisions and things like that. Head coach Henrich, he's like, you know what, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it correctly. And I think that is going to reset the franchise back to, when, in the background there, you got Pietrangelo, that seems like, a lifetime ago. And Kevin and Ryan are going to be the pieces that probably get us back to that era.
Yeah, hopefully so. And again, this is like a discussion that we'll have closer to the draft and everything like that. But again, just kind of getting everybody grounded about where we're at and making sure we know what the situation is here. We're just as passionate and want to see this team do well as all the fans are out there.
Yeah.
And we understand, what their concerns are and things like that. And the management, the coaching staff, trust me, they all feel that and they all hear that as well.
Speak candidly as a fan, I it took me a little while to try and not to take my fan glasses off essentially while doing this and over the course of the year. And I hope I've gotten a little bit better at it. But last year it was really just Kevin. That was the reason why as a fan you went and watched. Obviously it's fun to get a night out. It's, I love going to the Meridian Center. It's just such a perfect place in the city. And that's why I think the fan turnout was so good. But, realistically, the games were over and you were really just watching Kevin and you were like, okay, this was a second round pick. And there was something different about him. It's hope. It's really what it is. That's what hockey or what all sports fans go through. It's like when you can't sell championships, you sell hope, right? And there wasn't really much of it last season and even going into this year. But I think that now there's a lot more of it. And if you are someone that's maybe not questioning going out to games and things like that, because you see that you're 7 points back in the playoffs and they might not, make the playoffs and it might be kind of just, the mail in. I mean, again, I love personally every night at the Meridian Center watching Rubric. The 2-goal night he had the other night. Like it's fun watching someone that has the potential to be an NHLer. And he was drafted second overall, watching Kevin for the rest of the year so that he can get drafted. Like, I love being. I'll give you a perfect example. As a Sharks fan, watching Daniil Gushkin, like, so I was invested so much more that year because I knew that a player who has been fantastic in the AHL, by the way. You're getting to see them early on in a career, and that's something that you get in the OHL and in the CHL in general that you don't get another. Like just being a fan of the NHL, you're seeing the final product, but seeing a player that a junior. Does well. And then you get to watch them in the real thing. It hits different. When I saw Gushkin score his first NHL goal, I was like, I remember him scoring his first Niagara IceDog goal. And that means a little bit more. So if you're a fan, your question coming out, watch number 25, watch Kevin and not just them, but like they play like a playoff. Every game's a playoff game for them. They play so much harder. It's just fun, and I think that it goes a long way.
Well said. And we're going to talk more about that, but we're going to get to our first segment today. It is our Leadership Lounge, our first one with new IceDogs captain Gavin Bryant, and that is brought to you by the Niagara Golf Lounge. Niagara's home for golf and sport year-round, located in the best Western Carencroft Hotel in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more, to host an event, or to book your golf day today. Here is IceDogs captain Gavin Bryant discussing his team and a little bit about his golf game as well. Back on the Leadership Lounge with IceDogs captain Gavin Bryant. Gavin, you've been the captain for about a month now since the trade deadline. How has anything really changed for you as far as fitting into that role? I mean, I know we talked to you the first night after that, but how has it been just first full month we're in the sea?
Yeah, me personally, not really. I've kind of been myself this whole year with the IceDogs, but no, it's with the group in that room and the coaching staff, it makes it pretty easy for me just to kind of stay myself and stay the same person. So no, it's been pretty enjoyable so far. When things aren't going your way and the results aren't coming and you have off nights and things like that, I know character is a big thing for you, and having a lot of pride in what you do is a big thing. So how do you do you have to relay that to the guys about making sure that they're doing all the right things on and off the ice to battle through the adversity and battle through the tough times and continue plugging away at this thing, because it is a long season? Yeah, it's always good to remind them, because it's a young team. Again, I've said that a couple times this year, but no, it's a good reminder for sure. But again, it's a good room. the guys seem to be buying in. But no, when we get on tough stretches like this weekend after last night's game, it's just it's a matter of sticking together, staying as a family, and knowing that we all got each other's back. And the family part being the big one.
And what's it been like with so many young guys in the room? Obviously, they got a lot of energy and they got some jokes too. What has it been like having those 4 16-year-olds in there and joking around with them and being kind of like big brothers to them?
Yeah, it's fun, right? I mean, I guess I was once that kid. I was once that rookie, the jokester. But no, I'm kind of playing the older brother now. But no, they're good. They're great players. It's just it's a matter of holding them accountable for whatever it is on the ice, off the ice. But no, they're great kids. They're funny kids, and they got a bright future ahead. But no, I think the accountability part being held on my end and the coaches' end, and the other older guys' end is a big part. But no, they seem to be listening. So.
And it's important to get your mind away from the rink sometimes because you put your heart and soul into this. So do you guys ever do anything off the ice together, try to get together as maybe not a full team, but just some of the groups of guys and do some fun stuff off the ice? What do you guys like to do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it varies. Just whether it's getting together at the guy's house watching football. We got a lot of football fans on the team, so that's good. But playing cards or whatnot, whatever it may be on a Sunday night on a day off, it's usually football in that case. But again, it's a great group of guys, and we always find something to do. So.
I know you're a Dolphins fan, so I'm treading lightly here. But who's your Super Bowl pick this year?
I feel like it'd be the Lions. Lions would be a pretty cool one for the city of Detroit. But I don't know. I'm gonna go. I'll go with the 49ers. I don't know if the Lions are gonna do it. So.
No AFC team, eh?
No AFC team. No.
And obviously, Niagara Golf Lounge is a sponsor. I know you're a big golf guy. You golf a few times in the summertime. One, what's your favorite club? And two, what was your golf game like this summer?
I'll say my favorite club. I don't use any hybrids or anything in my bag or woods, so I'll go with a 4-iron just from 200 and out because that's all I can put it. But no, obviously having surgery in the summer, I kind of missed my golf a little bit, but getting back into it was good. And hopefully have a long summer of it this summer, try and get some tournaments are going. I think we're trying to get some sort of a foundation tournament going with the IceDogs, so that would be pretty cool on my end. But no, yeah, big golf guy for sure. So,
is there any other sports you liked growing up that chose hockey over? Or I know some guys are big into lacrosse and some other things. What was Gavin Bryant like growing up as far as other sports?
Yeah, for sure. It was hockey in the winter and baseball and soccer in the summer. It was good to kind of get my mind off it, and especially baseball too. I quit playing soccer at around 11 or 12, but I stuck with baseball for a while there, and I think it's just it's a good mind off hockey. You kind of need it in the summer because it's nothing like hockey, so I think that's the big part for me. I obviously got into golf at a young age, then my dad played football in high school, and I got really into football in the last couple of years, so no, definitely a wide range of sports in my household for sure.
Do you know if there are any other guys that are really good at golf and guys that have challenged you and looking forward to going up against them this summer?
Yeah, I don't know. I went with Asadorian and I went with Ride there at the start of the year at Royal Niagara Golf Course. But yeah, we're gonna have to see this summer if there's any good players. A lot of good players on my team last year in Owen Sound, so we'll have to test the waters here in Niagara. So.
And lastly, it's the message here, the last 25 games or so. You guys it's obviously still goal is to make the playoffs. What's the mindset and the message of the guys as you continue forward here, get through the ups and downs and the tough stretches, and just making sure that everybody stays upbeat and like you said, there's a bright future here, so long-term plans, but also trying to stay in the moment.
Yeah, you know what? The season's not over, right? Like, I mean, like you said, 25 games left. I think the goal obviously is still playoffs for sure. It's very attainable, but I think the most important thing and the beauty about this league is there's a good chance, like last night when you lose a game 10-0, you got a quick swing around, and 12 hours later you're playing another game. So I think that's the biggest thing. And when you drop a game like that last night, you just move on from it. Right when that buzzer goes, you're on to the next one. And no, it's the beauty of the OHL because you can do that a lot of occasions in a week. But no, it's a long season, and I think we got a good chance here if the guys can just stay in it. I know January and February are long months, but no, the biggest thing will be staying in it and just making that final push.
Leadership Lounge brought to you by the Niagara Golf Lounge with IceDogs captain Gavin Bryant. Gavin, thanks so much for taking the time, and good luck the rest of the way here.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
There was IceDogs captain Gavin Bryant on our first Gavin's Leadership Lounge, brought to you by the Niagara Golf Lounge. Cam, initial thoughts there from what the new IceDogs captain had to say. You know, he's a pretty talkative guy and he's pretty open about, where this team is right now. And they still have a lot of pride in that room. They've got a lot of character. He talked about the brotherhood, and he was very adamant that their goal is still playoffs, and they truly believe in that room that they can get there.
Well, I think that the one thing, like, first of all, he says everything as a captain should, right? Like he sounds like someone who is a captain. So that's great first and foremost. But you see it on the ice, like there isn't a scrum where everyone's not sticking up for each other, you know? And again, not everyone, you don't have to fight anything like that. I'm not talking about that, but when someone gets you from behind or gives you an extra shove, rarely does it go without someone else saying something. And that's big going forward. You got to make sure that you're playing for each other, because once it goes the other way, then it really gets away from you. And I don't think the coaching staff would allow that. And I don't think Gavin will allow that. He's been, I remember when, he first came over here in training camp, he felt like he was already the captain. So he's been great. And, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out next year. I'm happy that he'll be back. I love the fact that, he's a big golfer, so it's nice that he can disconnect. And, I like that, that they hang out. Like, it's nice to hear that, like, outside of the rink, again, the kids, they hang out and their togetherness, because, like, again, just showing up every game day and not really caring, like, you'd see that on the ice. Hockey is the one sport that chemistry and, desire to want to protect each other and things like that are very evident, and they can carry you more than talent on some nights. I mean, we've seen the IceDogs beat the best teams in the OHL and on multiple occasions. And that doesn't, and, again, they're not more talented, but you can definitely see that things are changing in the background.
Yeah, and he talked about Miami Dolphins fan. I know that's hard for him. You as a Patriots fan, nope, not picking any AFC teams, and he did pick the San Francisco 49ers, who are going to the Super Bowl, so he still got that on the line there. But we're going to get to more of Gavin Bryant in the second segment today, because he did have a big day in Ottawa, and the power play we're going to talk about as well, kind of correlating into that. We'll get to our fan polls as well, and we'll get Adam Henrich, the director of scouting, and our great chat with him about the upcoming 08 draft class. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the price of cable, you can get Fubo TV and watch the live sports and TV you love. Try free at FuboTV.com.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair. helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
Niagara Golf Lounge features 2 state-of-the-art indoor golf simulators, allowing you to play some of the world's best courses all year round. The perfect place to indulge all season long. Don't worry about getting thirsty while you play around with your friends. Their fully stocked bar offers a wide selection of drinks, appetizers, and a variety of meals are also available to enjoy before, during, or after you play. Grab a seat next to the fire in their comfortable sports lounge. Didn't bring your clubs? No problem. They have partnered with TaylorMade to offer you the best rental clubs. You won't want to miss their exclusive NFL and NHL giveaways for the Buffalo Sabres and Buffalo Bills. Located in the Best Western Plus Cairncroft Hotel, 6400 Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls. Visit NiagaraGolfVacations.com to learn more and to reserve your golf bay today. The Niagara Golf Lounge, Niagara's home for golf and sport all year round.
This is Alex Asadorian.
Hey, it's Ryan Roberk.
This is Ivan Galliano.
This is Gavin Bryant.
And this is the
Dog Pound Podcast,
the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Niagara IceDogs monthly wrap-up for the month of January. Bryant, Caputo, and Cam Halbert are with you. The Dog Pound Podcast is proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods. Our pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their great Niagara region locations. Make sure to give us some love on X at Dog Pound Podcast for all of our IceDogs content and updates there. As well, we're available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on our YouTube channel by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. So thank you to those today tuning in on YouTube, and as well those listening today on demand on all of our audio platforms. So Cam, before we get into the Twitter polls and then eventually Adam Henrich's talk with us, I did talk about before we hit the commercial break about the power play. Gavin Bryant was able to get the IceDogs a power play goal in Ottawa where he was just kind of sitting in front of the net, Johnny on the spot, and was able to swipe it right in. We talk about the IceDogs and their power play being an area of concern, and even Ben Boudreau has talked about needing to get that back up if they want to have a chance here. It's still ranked last in the Ontario Hockey League at 10.5%, but if we go back to last week against the Brantford Bulldogs, we saw something that we talked about in the game recap that we might have not seen all year from the power play, where they were able to set up, a tic-tac-toe type of play and try to hit Kevin He in the slot, who was stopped in that sense. But just the way that they were able to move the puck on the power play this weekend, despite not seeing the results in the wins, I think that was encouraging.
For sure, and I think that as they... The other tough part with the injuries, it's been to a key player every time on the power play, like whether it be Asadorian, even losing Podolou, for example,
or Wysick,
Wysick too. Wow, man, he is such a goodness. He is underrated. But I think that it all comes. I'll be honest. Yeah. So that play that you were alluding to, it's for anyone that didn't watch, it's the Tampa Bay power play. So they've got 2 wingers out wide for the one-timer. They've also got someone dead in the middle. And it was a play where I think Rubrick faked the one-timer, sent it right into the middle to Kevin, and he just blasted it. But it was kind of a little close against. Was it against Brantford? I thought it was against Leanders.
Might have been.
I can't remember. I think it was against Mississauga. But nonetheless, it was the first time I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? I still think this comes back to that. If there's one area this year in the off season that I hope that, off the top of my head, I think all the defensemen are able to come back except for Federico, who's a overager, and he's not really particular among the offensive players on the team. I don't know if it's weight room, technique, like flex, like more flex in their stick. I would love to see. They need a defenseman that can hammer the puck, and so I equate it to you watch London for most of the season. The Finnish Danny Heatley, as I like to call him, Haltonen was basically their trigger man, and we saw it 3 times I think in the first 2 games, where he just kind of, like Danny Heatley just from the face-off dot just rips it home with this just almost a comical windup. But over the last few months, Oliver Bonk is starting to let it rip. And we also know that Sam Dickinson has one of the more NHL-ready one-timers as well. I think that the lack of that, Sobolev let it go a little bit every once in a while, and I think Bronson Ride would as well, but it was more of a wrist shot. He would try and thread the needle. And I think that Podrickar and Weisikar as well, they kind of try and thread the needle a little bit. And while that's not bad, it's just, if you can, there's going to be times where everything's taken away, right? Things break down, everything's taken away, especially when you don't have the immense offensive talent throughout your lineup. Being able to send it back to the point, just let someone absolutely tee one up, is just an advantage that they don't have. And they haven't had, I mean, in my time being an Ice Dog fan, like I'm talking like 2018, like I'm trying to think, like even Denincio was probably the best offensive defenseman that we'd have. And he was more breakaway, razzle dazzle than he was just letting it go. So I would love to see that as something that is improved upon, to take away from the fact they've got to play everything down low, because once you do that, like it's easy to cover that. Like the box doesn't have to play up tight at the point because it's not really a threat. You know what I mean? But again, I'm not the coach. I'm just someone who's watched all the games and just an observation, because I mean, how many times, I mean, we went like 2 months before we saw a dirty goal. Like, as funny as that sounds, every goal the Ice Dogs scored was either off the rush, a breakaway, shorthanded, or like a deke, or Kevin or Zach firing one just upstairs, just picking a corner. There was very rarely any just ugly ones, and that's what you need more of. And I think that having a player on the back end that can just let it go causes the ugly ones, So,
and I think a guy that could take that next step, and whether he has that one time or not, is Chanowski, because we've seen that he's a puck-moving D and an offensive gifted defenseman.
He let one
scored
go.
His first goal in Ottawa, and that was a really nice wrist shot cutting down from the point there. So maybe he's a guy you look at as somebody that could really take over as the power play quarterback that they like to call it.
I've noticed Frolov too. Again, more of that same trying to thread the needle, but we've noticed it quite a bit now. When Frolov gets a chance in the offensive zone, he's really trying, and he's close. He's been close a couple times. So yeah, I think they just need somebody that can just hammer it. And maybe that is, Chanowski. Just somebody. I think that would go a long way. It would take a lot of stress off the forwards, I think.
And I really like that power play setup they have, where they hit it twice. Again, the game that we were talking about, it was either Mississauga or Brantford, where Kevin He was stopped on it. The goal that they scored in Ottawa was Robrick giving it down low to Matthew Paris, and him just with a beautiful touch pass right in the middle, right in the crease to Gavin Bryant there, was able to put it in. Matthew Paris's touch passes lately have led to a couple of goals. So I talked to him off the ice, said he's got to start teaching everybody else how to do those, because he's seems like he's kind of mastered that skill, and it's nice to have him back in the lineup, which we'll get into with the Twitter polls. But speaking of that, we might as well get to that with the polls this week. Remember, follow us at Dog Pound Podcast. We post polls for all of our shows for our monthly recaps on there, so you guys can get in the conversation, have your voice heard on which Ice Dog players you've been most impressed with lately. So our first of the three polls is, which Ice Dogs player has taken the biggest step forward this month? Ryan Robrick, Kevin He, Gavin Bryant, and Matthew Paris. Ryan Robrick won with 42.3%. Second place was Gavin Bryant, and third place Matthew Paris. Kevin He actually finished last in this poll, which is probably a first for any time that we put Kevin He on a poll. But I don't know if that's exactly a knock on him. I just think that all three of the other guys have really stepped up and elevated their game to really help Kevin He out.
Yeah, I think Kevin is just what he is. Like, you expect him to be offensive and drive play, and that's just what he's done. It's not that he hasn't, but Ryan's gotten more assists lately, and he had that 2-goal game. He's starting to find it points wise, and I don't disagree with that. He's definitely the most improved.
As far as our second poll goes, which Ice Dogs newcomer has impressed you the most since the trade deadline? The three players that they did acquire: goaltender Charlie Robertson, Callum Chanowski on the defensive side, and Mason Ray, the forward. Charlie Robertson takes us, but it was very close. 48.5% for the goaltender, 45.5% for Callum Chanowski. What was your thoughts to that?
I probably would have went Robertson as well. I think that having to play 3-3, awfully tough there. But yeah, Chanowski and Ray, they've each had games where it's been very noticeable, and they've done a great job. But Robertson is having to come in and then play every game when he wasn't playing it all. Exactly, right? Like, because Flores is battling something. So, no, I think that he's definitely been the biggest impact for sure.
And then our third poll, which I made a spelling mistake on, but it is what it is. Which IceDog player currently out of the lineup are you looking for to have the biggest impact upon their return? Goaltender Owen Flores, forward Alex Asadorian, who's currently suspended, D. Andrew Wysick, and forward Mike Levin, who is going to be back in the lineup this week. Levin takes it at 40%, but it was pretty good distribution there between all four. You had three of them having 20%.
Well, I mean, like they're like four most important players in the team, after in terms of drive and play. God, Levin has been a bright spot. Like I mentioned, for any of the IceDog fans that listen to the show that have been an IceDog fan for a while, it just reminds me so much of Kian Sopa. Just a 99 heart, in terms of attributes. He's got 99 heart. He's got an edge to him. Doesn't like it when someone says something rude. Lets him know. He's dropped the gloves a bunch. I still don't know how he glides into the slot like he does, because every time he does it, I'm so scared he's going to get absolutely popped. But he's sneaky with it, and he's got a great wrist shot. I mean, Ryerson Linders is probably going to go in the maybe second round of the draft, and he beat him clean glove side on a wrist shot from 10, 15 feet out. So that was in one of the last recent games before he went away. But he's just been so surprising to me. I think Levin, you didn't think that trade would become important, and it was a big one for the IceDogs.
Levin and Paris, both guys that didn't really have an opportunity in London, and they're making the most of it here in Niagara. So thank you to everybody who participated in our Twitter polls at Dog Pound Podcast. Cam, before we move on, I've got the player stats up on the screen. Mike Levin, the 16 goals, 28 points in the 40 games. He's been impressive. He's third on the team in points right now. Kevin He leading the way with 36 and 45. Again, those minuses are a point of emphasis they want to focus on. But again, when a couple of those games were blowouts, it's bound to happen. Ryan Robrick, though, 30 points in 40 games. He missed the 5 games that he was away at the World U17 or at the U17 tournament. And he's 6 goals away, as I quickly mentioned in the first segment, from tying Kevin He and Akil Thomas for the goals as a 16-year-old. Prediction here, by the time we record our February wrap-up, does Ryan Robrick tie and or pass Kevin He and Akil Thomas as a record?
I hope so, man. I hope so. Like I mentioned earlier on in this episode, that we need him and Kevin to be the potential, Petrangelo, like the guys that we are going to remember for a long time that help make the franchise proud again, for players to be proud to come here. And it would be great for him to get a piece of that record. Because huge. And again, we need to see some more drafted players, and that would just go a long way, I think, in terms of like a resume kind of situation. But I think so. I think it happens, whether I think he gets like a hat trick, like something quick. I think it's quick succession. Maybe not in the next recent game. Maybe he goes on a little slump, but I think that it happens quick.
Well, he scored 2 goals in the period against Brantford this week, so and he was our J&O Flooring Player of the Week for the Niagara IceDogs. He's continued to shoot. That's the big thing. He's continued to put pucks on net.
A lot.
Yep. He had 11 in the 3 games.
Exactly. Yeah, among rookies, and just pulling that up right now, just in terms of rookie shooting, just a crazy amount of shots. I think he leads all rookies in shooting, and he is. 1 second. Sorry, I apologize. He has got, he is. Second place is Sam O'Reilly on London with 113. He's got 144. It's going to go in. He's got enough of a shot. He's not just firing stuff low on the pads, right? Like he's picking it upstairs. And as he continues to get more confident, that is a ton of shots on goal. Like he's averaging, what is the average on that? Because that's almost 4 shots a game.
Kevin's got 202, so
yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all either. But the impressive part is his assists. I remember early on in the season, his vision. He makes some feeds that are just impressive, and we went a long stretch where he was scoring, but he wasn't getting assists. And now we're starting to see that playmaking ability.
So I think this is a good time to get to our last segment today, with IceDogs Director of Scouting Adam Henrich, and a great conversation about that 07 draft class, and as well looking ahead to the 08 draft class and kind of where their mindset is on their approach on where they're going to go with that. But a lot of good praise for that 07 draft class that we keep talking about with those 4 17-year-olds. So that segment today is brought to you by the Niagara Dental Clinic, creating natural smiles in Niagara for 25 years. If you forgot to bring your mouth guard on the ice or lost a chiclet, contact their licensed team of dental professionals in Niagara Falls to get your smile back on track. Here is Niagara IceDogs Director of Scouting, Adam Henrich. Please be back on our IceDogs monthly wrap-up and our scouting check-in, brought to you by the Niagara Denture Clinic with IceDogs Director of Scouting, Adam Henrich. Adam, thanks so much for taking the time. We spoke to you last at the draft, and it was a big draft for the Niagara IceDogs. GM Wes Consorti has been on with us every month talking about how important that 07 draft class was and how you guys were able to hit. All the credit to you guys with those 4 players in Ryan Robrick, Ethan Zada, Artem Frolov, and Ivan Galyanov, who are all playing significant minutes right now for a team that has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations and had a lot of guys in and out of the lineup, but those 4 guys have kind of been stabilizers. Just talk about how proud you are of, that 07 draft class, that how they've been playing so far with 4 16-year-olds in the lineup. It's pretty unprecedented.
Yeah, I think it's great, right? They're all showing what they can do on their own, and through as a team. Those are kids we watched, throughout the year, players we watched throughout the year, and, very, and I think what I like about what we were doing, we didn't listen to the noise, right? We stuck with what we thought. We had our ups and downs with players like we do with anyone else, and we drafted what we thought was, A, the best available, and B, the best available for what we are trying to do, right? So, and now they're showing it. They're logging minutes, and they're playing like second, third year guys, right? And, Ryan, he's showing what he can do in this league. Ethan, I think he's been sort of snake bitten to start, and now he's coming to his own. But I always say about Ethan, if he, is I don't want to throw numbers out, 50, 60, 70 point guy, but, one of the best two-way players, in the league in his, third year, we're laughing, right? Frolov is a player beyond his years. There's a lot of things really, really well, highly skilled, highly intelligent, very smart defensively, but, it's a learning curve for him like anyone else, right? Galyanov, I loved from the beginning. I think he was a steal in the draft. He's a workhorse, unbelievable attitude. We were so lucky to get him. And like I said, I think these are, 4 guys in year 2 and 3 who are going to make a very, very big impact around the league and for this team.
And you talked about, as far as Galyanov, because that was one of your biggest bulletin board material quotes from the draft, was that you said that Galyanov should have been a first-round pick, a guy that went in the 4th round, and he's been a spark plug for the IceDogs when he's, gotten to the lineup on a consistent basis here, can move up and down the lineup. He's a very competitive player. From a scouting perspective, when you're looking at guys in the 3rd or 4th round and you're able to get somebody like Ivan Galyanov, what are the intangibles that you and the scouting staff are kind of looking at to hopefully turn those players into impact OHLers, and what he's been able to do as a first-year player, that's a 4th round pick? We don't see that a lot in this league. What was it about Galyanov that really stuck out to you?
So I've watched Ivan throughout sort of, my years in the GTHL. He's always been one of the best players in this league, right? He's always worked, always been, played pretty hard. He's a typical 5-tool player. I think, people saw the size like, oh, what's he going to turn out to be? But that, everything else overshadowed that, right? And it's showing here, right? Because he works, because he loves it, because he has high character. It was interesting. I don't know. When he was on the board for us, right, I was like, oh, here we go. He's still here type of thing. And I think, we got lucky, but he was pretty high on our board. Whatever was happening in other teams' minds, what they, we didn't see that, or feel that. I think we just got lucky, landed up to us. He should have been taken earlier for sure, but, he's a typical 5-tool player. He does everything really well, but he works and he loves the game. This is a kid who, something that a lot of scouts might not know, but because I'm sort of in the area here, when he was on his U16 team last year, and this went a long way to me, and no one probably knew this, they would have the younger kids practicing before on his Vaughan Kings team. So I think like the 10 or 11-year-olds. And he would go on before and help the kids on his own. and then he would stay on after with the older team. Like, that's the type of person he is, right? Nobody knew. So in terms of character, think about that. He goes on before to help the next generation of players, work with them, help him pick up pucks, as a top player on his team, staying on after, working with the older guys. I think that just sort of says everything about him as a character type of player. And then, his skill set, how hard he competes. So you put that all together, right? Then you get a good package, right, in terms of a hockey player. And like I said, I think we got lucky to get him to the fourth round, and I think he's going to show that in the next year or two, as he already has as a 16-year-old.
Not to be forgotten here, Ryan Roberk is most likely going to break Kevin Hees and Akil Thomas's goal record for the franchise as 16-year-olds at 21. He's already at 15 in 40 games because he did miss time away at the U17s as well. Can you speak to what Ryan, is this kind of what you had expected from him already as a 16-year-old? I know you don't want to put high expectations, but what he's been able to do this year, are you really surprised at that? And do you think that the sky's really the limit for him as far as what he can grow into as far as his potential goes?
Oh yeah, Ryan's a hell of a player, right? He's always shown it, even growing up, in the OHL. We knew what he can do. We watched him thoroughly all year. We also know that, when you're watching some players, they perform different at different levels with different players, different ages, right? So, Ryan's so smart and he's so big and his shot is so elite, and he gets to those areas and he finds those holes, right? And we knew what he was all about. We knew what he can do, right? And it was just a matter to see it at this level, right? And we were very confident all along that he was going to be our guy, right? Like, you hear things, this or that, or, he might not have the best OHL Cup or whatever, but that wasn't, things that really concern us because we knew what he was about. We watched him all year. We take as a scouting staff, no different than Wes, or Darren or whoever, we take as a scouting staff, all year long, right? Some people are like, after the OHL Cup or after the Silver Stick, now he's, no good anymore. That doesn't work like that, right? So to really build and understand and draft the proper players, you got to take from the first day to the last day before the draft. And I think as Ryan, that's what we really did. And we saw that and we were invested in that. And we were very confident when we picked him, no matter what the noise was around him, right? And I knew he'd put up points. Did I know he'd do this well this fast? No, 16-year-olds in the OHL is really hard. But, I knew he'd do well. And this is just showing now what type of player and how good he can be and how good he's going to be in the future for this team.
And you talk about your scouting staff, Greg, Dave, Scott, and Brian, as far as the collaboration with you guys talking throughout the season, looking ahead towards the 08 draft class, hoping that it's going to be as successful as the 07 draft class was for you, in another big draft for this organization. Just what are you really looking at as far as what's available out there right now? It's a little bit early. Obviously, the draft isn't until April, but what's kind of the game plan as far as what you're looking at, how important this 08 draft class is going to be as well to make sure that you and your staff do all the right things to give this coaching staff and the management, all the tools that they need at their disposal.
So I think every single draft is really important. I don't think you can undermine any draft, no matter what position you're in. It is how you build, right? Obviously. So I think we don't know how many years we're going to have the ability to be in the top 5 or top 10, right? So you got to capitalize on that. I think this draft, there's a lot of good players, right? It's really deep, but are there a lot of superstars, right? And that's what we got to notify. We think there's a few out there, and if we are lucky enough to get one of those, like another Ryan type of thing, then, we're going to be in a position. I think that's going to be our goal with that first pick. Can we get another Ryan Roberk who's going to perform? He's going to, play at the highest level. He's going to, put the points up. He's going to, be a franchise guy in a year or two, right? So I think, depending on where we finish, if we have the ability to get one of those guys, then we're on the right track, right? And then no different than the second round. Hey, we're looking at, if we could get, a whole type of thing where we see something in the lineup that we need, then we're going to take that player in the second round, but also best available, right? And like I said before, I think there's a few things that we need and we're looking at and we're urging on how we want to get it. But, drafts are tricky. You got to sort of be strategic on your needs and best player available, mix and match that. But I really, I'm very confident. I'm even looking at the list right now. I'm confident this year that we get that 1A player in that top 10. And, that second rounder could be, like another type of Frolov, right? Or Gallianov. Who knows, right? Could be a 4, could be a D. And then, we're looking at, I think we need a solid as well, franchise goalie, right? So we're working hard at that. There's a lot of good goalies, but once again, this draft is interesting because it's deep. There's a lot of good players, and you're always shifting here, right? Where last year, I think you saw your top 10. We knew it was top 10. Here, I think the top 3 or 4 are set in my mind, but after that, you could go 4 to 15, and you're like, who am I taking?
Right.
Right? So it's who do you like, what do you need, type of thing, right? So, but definitely we're in a position to draft very, very good hockey players who can be a future for this organization and help us, get a championship in a few years. I'm very confident in that too.
So lastly, what's the timeline look like here? Obviously, we've got the OHL Cup coming up, the Combine, and the draft there in mid-April, I believe. So what's the game plan as far as for you and the staff to kind of really start to hone in on some of this stuff and with some of those big events coming up as well? Just, is this a time that you kind of look forward to? Like, is this like back in your playing days, like gearing up for the draft and obviously you've been working all year, but excitement level like, and kind of what's the game plan for you guys the next month or so?
So I think the next month is sort of the grind before the OHL Cup type of thing, right? Seasons are going to finish soon. Playoffs will start coming along. We're going to, X off all the players we like, add to the list, make some changes, revisions, and then the OHL Cup comes, and that's really when you get a look. Okay, final look. Where's everybody at? We thought so. We didn't think so. Continue to build. I mean, we're going right up to the last minute, right? That's the thing. Yeah, that's the best part about this job, right? It's like, you could see a kid in the playoffs and then watching the OHL Cup, and he comes, he jumps a little higher. But like I said, it's somebody we've watched all year, so we understand, right? It's not someone who we're just, we're picking out of a hat because they had a good game or two, right? So there's limited time now. I think, everyone in their own leagues, we're going to be watching, and then we jump into the OHL Cup full steam. And then after that, we have a good idea where everything's at. We're having a lot of meetings. We're going to check on the, players, like I said, characters, families, how they're feeling and stuff. Interviews are very important, so I think come, a week or two before the draft, we're pretty confident on what we want to do.
IceDogs Director of Scouting Adam Henrich on our scouting checkup, brought to you by the Niagara Denture Clinic. Adam, thanks so much for taking some time today to speak with us and give the IceDog fans out there a little bit of insight into what's to come for this upcoming draft class and about the successful 07 draft class so far. So maybe we'll talk to you again one time before the draft, but if not, look forward to talking to you again for draft day and draft weekend. Always an exciting time down there at the Meridian Center.
Thanks a lot, Brandon. Appreciate it.
There was a great conversation with the IceDogs Director of Scouting, Adam Henrich, with some great thoughts there. High praise for Ivan Gallianov, and a cool story there about him staying long after practice to help out the younger kids. It's not shocking to me because Ivan Gallianov, even though he's 16 years old, he's a lovable character off the ice. He's a competitor on the ice, but he's a guy that you want to have in that room.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, so starting the year, Gallianov looked like he would be just a scratch. As someone that comes in, fills in for injuries, things like that. He got into the lineup, and there was a point where he had like 9 points in his first 12 games. Like he started out really hot offensively, but as he's gone along now, and he's had to play wing, he's had to play center, all the way up and down the. There was a couple games where he's a first line center, and has handled it really well. I think that he's definitely emotional. I think that he gets into it a lot with the other team, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think sometimes maybe he pays attention too much to that a little bit. But that's, he's so young. I think he's just competitive. I think that's what it is, because we've talked about this a number of times. There's a few players on the team where their legs don't stop moving, where they're in a puck battle and they just do not stop because they get frustrated. They're mad that someone got the puck off them or they're getting by them, and he's one of them. And having a high motor in hockey is extremely important. And that was a great story about staying back and helping young players. That's a character thing, and you can't teach that.
Cam, what were some of your biggest takeaways there from what the director of scouting said?
I think that first they were kind of surprised at Rubrick's stats. They knew that he was going to be good, but I think that being surprised at how good he is offensively already is big. And again, like we mentioned, he's leading the league in goals for a rookie against guys that are 17 years old. That can't be on the last place team in the league. It's not like he's getting fed from NHL drafted prospects. Like he's driving the play. I think that him getting a look at center is great as well. Like he's doing what he's asked to do, and he's very competitive. The other thing I liked is he talked a little about the OA draft. It's tough to obviously talk about it early on, but that he thinks that there might be like a 1 through 4, 1 through 3 that are kind of set in stone, but then like 4 through 15 is kind of whatever. It's wide open, and in drafts like that, it's tough because you got to draft for need, like you mentioned. I'm curious what you think. What would be the biggest need? Like, let's pretend that you're not drafting best overall, but what position do you think is needed the most with their first round pick?
I think they go with a young D again, because I think they brought in Frolov last year, which was a good ad. But I think they probably go with a young D and try to find a young franchise goalie. When Owen Flores and Charlie Robertson end up aging out at some point, they're going to need that young goalie to step up. And we've seen teams like Mississauga go with Ryerson Leanders and Jack Ivankovic as 17 and 16-year-old goaltenders. So it is possible if they do find some hidden gem goaltenders in the first or second round, I'd look at that as well. But I think up front, they have what they have, and they'll end up getting some forwards there. But I think if they go with a D and a goaltender with their first 2 picks, again, it's kind of off the board from what you'd usually do. But those would kind of be the 2 positions of need that I think that they would need to kind of restock the shelves of that 08 draft class and those young players.
It's so tough because it's the only league in the CHL where you can't trade your first round pick, right? The WHL and the Q, they don't do that. You can trade your first round pick. So not having multiple first round picks is tough because the pressure that puts on to not miss on your first round pick is massive. Because what ends up happening is, even though you can't trade your first round pick, you can trade the player, afterwards, if that's the case. I was Saginaw did it this year, I believe. The name's escaping me.
And Bruce Davidge from Ottawa went to Kingston. Went to London.
Yeah. And so that can happen, and that's how it kind of works. They get around that. But I'll be honest with you. I think that you can fill a D-core with overagers and players that are big, that are older. I think it's easier to find a defenseman that's serviceable that's older than it is a forward that's capable of putting up 50 points, right? I think that they still need, on top of Rubrick and Kevin and everyone else taking a leap forward, I would love to see another impact, push for a point per game type offensive player. And obviously that's very difficult. I would also love, not Miss Brampton. Can we say that now?
Almost.
It just got announced. Mississauga. Writing was kind of on the wall there for the last couple of years, but they are now Brampton, not the Battalion. Also, are they going to say the Steelheads?
Yeah. They're going to stay. I think the Brampton Steelheads went through the copyright phase.
Did? Okay.
Yeah. But again, this isn't confirmed. We're not breaking any news here.
No.
It's going
tweeted
around
about
Twitter.
It right before. Yeah. Darren Dreger just tweeted this out before we recorded. So, anyways, there is clearly a move that's going to be made. You've got Leanders, who is probably going to be one of the first. Him or Carter George, I guess. It's probably one of those, the first OHL goaltenders taken off the board in the NHL. And then you've got, Jack Ivankovic is who they took with 7th overall, 8th overall.
Yep.
Who is equally as impressive. I doubt that not because it wouldn't be great to have a tandem like that again, but just from a development standpoint, I can't imagine both goaltenders being let's split this 50-50 because it's a developmental league, right? If Leanders comes back and he's an NHL draft, he will be an NHL drafted player. He's not going to want to split the net, probably. Not saying his character is going to play. I'm just saying that that's just how it is. You're going to want to be the one here. So, if they move on from Leanders, throw the farm in terms of picks because at least you know what you're getting.
I think there'll be a lot of teams knocking down that door.
Exactly, for sure. But I mean, we've seen what happens when you can get a good goaltender. I mean, Tucker Tynan carried the Ice Dogs almost into the playoffs like a couple of, you know what I mean? Like he was so good in the year before COVID and even the year afterwards. Even before and after his very unfortunate injury. He was so good. And even we're seeing with Flores too. Like there's nights where we have no business. And Flores has really kept us in it. So the advantage of in the OHL, I think more than in major junior and than any other league in the in hockey where a goaltender can really carry you and getting someone rock solid because this team isn't far off in the playoffs. And the one thing I didn't mention yet is that that Adam Henrich has talked about. Great quote as well is that you don't know how often you're going to get these picks. The top 4 is what he was alluding to, the lottery picks. And you got to hit on them when you do because you won't be out of the playoffs for long. And that sounds funny because the Ice Dogs have missed the playoffs for quite some time. And it's like, yeah, right. Like, what are you like? Let's stop worrying about, playoffs yet first. Let's, but it's like, it's true. There's 16 teams make the playoffs, right? So those bottom 4 picks, like you don't know how often you're going to get them. And if you miss, it's devastating. And you got to hit on those when you get the shot at them. And like they did with Robrick and Zada's looked really impressive as well. So this year is another massive one because they don't have the Zada pick to fall back on. That's like something because, the Dickinson trade ended up allowing them to take 5th to get Zada as well. If one of those doesn't work, at least you got Robrick or vice versa. This year, that not the case. So it's and just given the importance, like I said, I think they go best available again. I hope they don't, pick and choose and say, okay, we do need defensemen because I understand that they do. But I just think that if you put 3 overage defensemen, let's say, on the back end or 2 overage defensemen, they're at 20 years old. It's just so much more physical. Like, look at Federico, like, well, he's not going to put up 100 points or whatever. Like but he makes it's hell to go up against every night. And I think that compared to a forward who, that he's not going to score 50 points, right? You can kind of see the offensive cap on players where defensively they might only have 10 points, but man, it is going to be hell in your own end. So that's just, from what I would like to see, but I don't disagree that, they do need all 3 of those things.
No, I mean, I'm definitely in the camp of best available, but if it for some reason were, between a forward and a D and they were both at the same level, I'd go with the D. But if the best available is a forward, I'm not going to be upset with it, but we're going to have lots of time to talk about that as we lead up into April, and we do record on draft night whenever that is in April. But, Cam, before we wrap up, we'll take a look at the upcoming schedule for Niagara in February, and it's a tough one. More road games and more road trips. They just came off of 2 road trips, the Barrie-North Bay trip and then the Kingston-Ottawa trip. And after this week where they play Sudbury at home, they're in Peterborough, and then back in Niagara to play North Bay at home on Sunday. Then they've got the dreaded 3-3 in North Bay, Sudbury, and Sioux. And then they've got to turn around to play in Erie on a Wednesday. So, as we mentioned, a lot of road games coming up for this team. And I hope that they're able to get some sort of a stable lineup back because they're going to need it for another long stretch of road games and road trips.
I'm not even worried about the good teams. Like that, the good teams, they show up, like it is. And I don't mean they play down to their opponent, but I don't know what it is this year. If you were to go back and look at the teams that are not in a playoff spot or, let's say 6th and below in the conference, it's pretty impressive that they have been able to do what they've done against the teams through 1 through 6, as opposed to 7 through 10. But I think it's good for them. I go on the road. That's where you get the most, the biggest bonding experience for them. Like they're just going to be together the whole time. There's no reinforcements coming. It's after the deadline. Like you got to go through what you got to go through. And I think they're going to surprise some people. I do. Again, 7 points back. It takes 2 games. If they were to win, against Sudbury and Peterborough, Peterborough is a winnable game. It is. They're one of the worst teams in the league right now. Like they're 3 points back, and I'm just, they're hungry. So we'll see.
Yeah, and they play Peterborough twice, they play Barrie twice, and those are the 2 teams that they're catching, and those could be big 4-point swings, but they're also going to have to make up some points other places as well. So again, they've got a big month of February coming up, and I hope that the next time we come on to record another monthly recap, that, it's really in range there going into March, because I would love to see some meaningful games there in March where they're 3 points back, and we're getting really excited about them having a possibility of being able to sneak in that playoff 8th spot, because, again, even if it's a short series, a 4 to 5 game series, the experience for the players and also the fan base to finally get back to seeing some playoff hockey in Niagara would be huge.
Even just playing games with the potential of it at home.
Meaningful games in March.
Like, we talked about that at the beginning of the season. Just don't be out of the playoffs by December. And while it's looked ugly, 7 points to 7 points is still quite a bit, but Peterborough's not doing better. They're 1-8. They're worse than us in the last 10, and, we'll see. I would love to see the final month, just throughout it, that it's not over yet. They're not eliminated mathematically, just because I think that that's important for growth for them.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap up our IceDogs monthly recap for January 2024. Thank you to everybody tuning in today on the video version of the podcast, and as well tuning in on demand and audio. Still look for our game recaps after every single home game the rest of the way here. And until we talk next time, my name is Bryant Caputo as the host of the program, my co-host Cam Halbert, and the Dog Pound podcast is proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods. Our pets are undeniably part of the family in all 4 of their great Niagara region locations, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, and we'll talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.